You're watching TRTS Clips, a clip-sized content playlist that encloses experiences and stories of some of the most amazing, intellectually sound people from different walks of life. You enjoy this particular clip and don't forget to check out the entire playlist. If you like it, please support us by sharing it. Now, without further ado, the guest is all yours.
Like you mentioned one point that the power of blockchain is massive. Could you explain that statement with context to certain fields or domains so that we could understand that how actually can blockchain be a disruptive thing to go for in that domain?
Sure, definitely. So one of the key themes which comes out, when anybody talks about blockchain is number one, transparency.
Okay.
Right. So the fact of the matter is that while you can have your own everybody has their own blockchain wallet address, depending on whichever blockchain you are, and you're on, let's say, Bitcoin address or Ethereum address or whatever address may have you. So whatever is there in your account, right, in your, let's say, your Bitcoin account, your blockchain account, whatever is there, it's open to everybody. Any given moment of time, anybody's account can be audited. So a lot of people say that, oh, Bitcoin, you can never come to know anything, like, where is money going to? Actually, it is a lot more transparent than any Visa or MasterCard system there. Because there's so many transactions, you have no idea what's happening. In Visa and MasterCard, you can do a transaction, for example, and send money from A to B and delete like the logs, and nobody will know what happened.
Exactly.
Right. Something like this on blockchain is impossible. So blockchain actually can be monitored very easily, and there's a high degree of transparency. And when you bring in a high degree of transparency, then all sorts of interesting things are possible. So if you look at the way the entire businesses these days, or rather, let's say data-oriented businesses are built these days, are built on basically selling information.
Yeah.
Right, where essentially you as a person are the product, and your information is being then either used or misused or sold to other companies so as to be able to create some form of value, where the focus is to figure out what you want and in many ways preempt your thought process also to an extent, and be able to then provide you goods and services. So you get these SMSs saying that, hey, would you like to buy shoes or something, and you must have started seeing how this works also, right? Like you Google, like, let's say, running shoes, and then you're randomly browsing Amazon, it gives you a deal right on running shoes. Like, how did this happen? So this is kind of how the entire data-oriented economy seems to be functioning, right? The blockchain economy is very different from this. So in the blockchain economy, all the information which is pertaining to you is in many ways public, and at the same, in many ways, extremely private. So you as a person can choose not to share your information and about who you are, and yet be able to do transactions. So for example, I can do transactions in a blockchain network. I don't need to reveal my name. I don't need to reveal my sex. I don't need to reveal my age. So all of those things, which are very private to you, which is being misused against you, frankly speaking, when you're being profiled on the internet every time you log in, like all of those things kind of go away. So privacy and transparency are handled very differently in blockchain. And this has a way of disrupting this entire data economy. Yeah. So this entire economy, which is built on identifying who you are and what your needs and wants are, and then how to weaponize that information, to sort of target you in some way or the other through ads. It's done even in political campaigns. Like, I don't know if you read about what Cambridge Analytica did with Facebook and during the US election. All of that is impossible on blockchain, right? So it's, in a strange way, it is extremely transparent, where you can see everybody's account information, but you don't know who they are. Right. And this puts power back into the hands of the masses, because when people can't profile you, they can't target you. So this is kind of why I feel blockchain from a decentralized perspective is extremely, extremely disruptive. Now, there are other ways of looking at this disruption as well. So for example, what happens with blockchain also is that it removes the middleman from many of the transactions in which we are used to. So for example, let's say you are based in another country, I am based in another country. I want to send funds to you. How do you do that? Visa. Right. There's literally no other way, right? You need some person who's in the middle, who essentially takes money from me and then gives it to you.
Exactly.
Right. Blockchain essentially removes this middleman. Now I can transact directly with you. And when I can transact directly with you, everything now becomes in a way peer-to-peer, where, loans are peer-to-peer, like reconciliation of records are peer-to-peer. Like everything now, becomes peer-to-peer, where people are freely interacting with each other. And this technology, this blockchain network is sort of facilitating all of this. Right. So it removes all of these middlemen and thereby all the inefficiencies which come with all these middlemen as well. So for example, let's say today, if you want insurance policy or something like that, you need to go to a bank branch, there's documentation, you do 100 different things, etc. Now, to a large extent, using mobile apps and where you can get instant loans, you have to an extent solved this. But with blockchain, it's entirely different, right? In blockchain, I can give you a loan, you can give me a loan, we can transact freely. And essentially, you remove all of these other different parties who have come in the middle, who essentially are bringing in either some level of efficiency, but at the same time, a high degree of inefficiency. So when the entire world becomes peer-to-peer and everybody can transact freely, all sorts of interesting business models are possible. So what the blockchain network does is it considers the entire world as one, versus, you are in this country, you use this currency. It doesn't matter. The currency is the same, and everybody is the same, and everybody is equal in this world. And this is kind of how this technology can be extremely disruptive. And and I encourage you to read more about it. This is obviously, this by itself is like a long conversation that will go on and on. But I think you're beginning to understand this picture of how if you let people transact freely, remove all the middlemen, and at the same time bring in this whole concept of transparency along with privacy, where you cannot be targeted. That it completely disrupts every, the way we think about this entire world, right?
Exactly.
And or how business is being done for the, let's say, last 25, 30 years. So this is kind of why people consider it very disruptive. And, people also consider it dangerous to an extent, because they feel that, maybe too much power is going in places where it should not be going. But this is kind of how, I feel about this technology. And of course, I encourage, people watching this, and you as well, to read more about this and ask questions.